What up, everybody? It's your boy, DFS Up North, aka Josh Thomas. I'm here with the Sharp app today to talk to you guys a little bit about round 2 of the Rocket Mortgage Classic. It's been kind of a long day in the Rocket Mortgage Classic. We've seen, some of the chalk bust. We've seen crazy things like Bryson DeChambeau and his caddy broke up. We've seen Brooks trolling him online. It's been a long day. We had a big, long rain delay. I'm not really sure that guys are going to be able to finish tonight, but we have enough data that we can actually go ahead and make a couple of bets on round 2. All right. Typically, these odds come out once. At least when half the groups are finished, we'll get the guys from the AM. We'll get odds for them for the round 2 matchups. Same thing with the afternoon guys. Once they finish, those start to trickle in. So most of these guys are all guys that played in the AM today that are going to play in the PM tomorrow. These are my 3 favorite bets so far for the round 2. All right. Now, how do you decide who is going to play well tomorrow? Who's going to play poorly? How do we decide what's a good value? All right. So that's what I'm here to tell you today. We're going to look at 3 bets, and I'm going to kind of talk through my process on why I think those are pretty good bets. And it really all lies in strokes gained data. So strokes gained data is really just a simple way to just say okay, if you hit it to 10 feet from 150 yards in the fairway, you are going to gain 0.2 strokes on the field. All right. And basically what ends up happening is that if you are gaining strokes approach, that means that you're hitting your irons really well. If you're gaining strokes putting, that means that you're putting really well. You're making everything from distance, from short, whatever. And what I like to target, and this applies for showdown on the DFS side, but on the betting side, on these round matchups, is I want to find matchups where a guy is hitting his irons really well and maybe didn't putt as well as he could, or just putted really poorly, because we know that putting is highly, highly variant, meaning that you can gain 3 strokes putting one day and lose 3 strokes putting the next day. You and me know just from playing as an amateur golfer, right? Like you go out one day and it seems like you make everything. You go out the next day, you can't make a 3-footer, right? Same thing happens to the pros. There are some guys that consistently putt a little bit better than others, and there's some guys that consistently putt a little bit worse than others, but for the most part, it's one of the most volatile statistics. If you're going to hit your irons well at a course, typically, or your driver really well at a course, typically, that just kind of carries through. All right. But we can see huge swings in putting, round to round. And we saw that last week with a guy like Kevin Kisner. All right. Shot even par on Thursday, very neutral day putting. Shot 8 under on Friday. Right. All his other statistics were the same, but what happened to his putter? He gained almost 4 strokes putting. Right. So it's a highly, highly volatile. And then the next day he came out and was back to actually lost strokes putting, and he shot 74. He shot 4 over par. So it's a very, very volatile type of thing. So I like to use strokes gain data to, sort of kind of sort through the noise and try to find some, edges for me. So if you look here, I got my little spreadsheet out. You can use other sites like Data Golf. There's a couple other sites out there, but really what I want to see is, okay, the first thing I want to look at is who is gaining strokes approach, right? So I can sort this. So actually I would sort it. So this is, I can see right now who is gaining all of their strokes approach. These are guys that are hitting their irons really well. So you got guys like Davis Thompson who went bonkers today, but Hideki Matsuyama, right? Gained 3.287 strokes approach today, and he lost 2.761 strokes putting. So what that tells me is that Decky is a really good, not a really good play. He's a solid play tomorrow. You got to take that with a grain of salt, because you got to understand that Hideki's always going to hit his irons really well, and he's typically always going to putt pretty poorly too. So unfortunately for Decky, I looked at his 3-ball today, but it's with his 3-ball for tomorrow is with Phil Mickelson and Ricky Fowler. And if you look here, we got Decky at 3.287 and Phil is at 3.018. So they hit their irons about the same. Phil putted a little bit better, but still pretty poorly, especially for a guy that putts pretty well. So for me, I actually looked at Phil in this case at plus 225. I think that's a decent bet, but not one that I'm, when there's 2 guys in the same group that are statistically pretty similar, that's not something that I want to target. All right. And 3-balls bringing a whole bunch of more variance than a head-to-head, but that's neither here nor there, because we're talking about 3-balls today, because typically that's all at least that's all I get my hands on for odds before I go to bed. At 2-3 in the morning, they might be showing up a little bit later. But okay, let's take a look at my first bet for the day. So my first bet is Sebastian Munoz plus 188 over Kevin Kisner and Satoshi Kodaira for 0.3 units. I really like Kadira. All right. I think that he's like live to win this tournament. If you've been following along, we have bet Kadira to win this tournament. But I think tomorrow that there is a ton of value on Sebastian Munoz at plus 188. And let me tell you why. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit on this screen. So if we look here, let me just zoom 125. Okay, so we can see Sebastian Munoz here, right? There's a couple of interesting stats here. So if we look, we can see that Munoz is hitting 92% of his fairways. So he is putting himself in great position off the tee. He's also hitting 88% of greens in regulation. Those numbers should, I'm going to slide Munoz up to the top here too, so we can compare. All right. So those numbers should, for all intents and purposes, translate over to strokes gained approach and strokes gained off the tee. And we can see that his strokes gained approach, 2.119. Very, very solid. Strokes gained off the tee, 0.981. That's close to 1 today. Is a pretty solid number. And look at that putting, minus 1.782. Munoz, not a great putter to begin with, but we have those reverse splits that we are looking for to try to exploit in these matchups. All right. So that's what Munoz looks like. Now let's scroll and find Kisner and bring him up. And then we'll bring Kadira up as well. He's going to be right there. And we can kind of compare and contrast these guys. And you can tell me what you think, and I can tell you what I think, right? So if we look at Kiz, Kiz had a pretty solid day today. He's sitting T6. I believe he shot, what do we got? -5, -5. Kadira and Kisner both shot -5 today. Hit 78% of fairways, which is not great for a guy that's that short off the tee. He needs to hit better than that. Kadira hit 92.8%, but Kiz was able to get his irons going a little. 8.833 percent greens regulation. And then we look at their approach stats. Neither of them are anywhere near as good as Munoz, right? Putting stats. Kiz wasn't hot with his putter today, but he wasn't bad. And Kadira, man, he poured everything in the hole. All right. So if we're looking at the odds here, Kadira's plus 200, Kiz is plus 125. Munoz is statistically the better play. Like if I was just playing these guys and it didn't matter the numbers, the betting, like I would take Sebastian Munoz to win this bet, to win this 3-ball all day, just based on the fact that he is crushing with his irons and that putter is going to come back. Like if you're hitting this many greens in regulation, you're going to make some putts. All right. So I am in on Munoz and Kadira, or on Munoz tomorrow over Kisner and Kadira. All right, let's look at the next one. Henrik Norlander plus 185 over Emiliano Grillo and Adam Schenk. And this is for 0.3 units. All right. This is another kind of intriguing strokes gained data one here. So let's bring these guys up towards the top of my sheet. Let's bring them up. Actually, let's just sort by position, and that'll make it a little bit easier. There we go. Oh, I can't sort by Z to A because it's stupid. The numbers. All right, let's just find them here. So we got Henrik Norlander, who is currently, I believe, at -4 here against a guy that I'm going to go back. There we go. Should need to lock that top bar. Against a couple of guys that played pretty poorly today. Grillo was fairly terrible in all aspects, and Schenk wasn't that solid either. So let's take a little look-see here if we can find either of these guys. There is Grillo. We can bring him to the top. So this is a guy that we are betting against, right? We think that Grillo is going to play poorly tomorrow. I think that he's a great course fit here. I will say with Grillo, last week he played really poorly in round 1 and he absolutely balled out in round 2. But look at this. Live stats, minus 2.08 strokes approach, minus 0.464 strokes putting. Like, it's just, that's negative. That ain't what we're looking for in a bet. There's my boy Norlander. Now let's take a little look at our guy that we are betting here at the top, in Henrik Norlander. Again, all this data is free on the internet. So Norlander hit 83% of his greens in regulation, scrambled pretty well, strokes gained approach, just a little over almost a stroke, gained a stroke putting, solid, decently solid off the tee. But again, this negative, his iron play was so poor. And then you added in like, that's a good round putting for Emiliano Grillo. So if I can get Norlander at 185, like I'm all over that. Now let's find Schenk because he was not very good either. There we go, Adam Schenk. Negative, 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 right? All of these negatives at the top make him look like a pretty bad play. And you can see why I am, interested in betting a guy who's gaining strokes everywhere versus two guys that are really struggling. We look at, minus point, just barely lost strokes approach, but almost lost 0.7 strokes putting, lost almost a half a stroke off the tee. You look at their position wise, Norlander's T18, Grillo's T40, Schenk's T109. Like it just makes way too much sense to bet Grillo over Schenk. And finally, my final bet of the day, Will Zalatoris plus 105 over Lashley and Straka. This is for 0.5 units. So I'm basically betting half a unit to win a unit, right? To win another half a unit back. I just think that Zalatoris is such an elite, like he's such a good ball striker. He's going to crush. And Straka and Lashley won here kind of out of nowhere 2 years ago, but since then has done nothing. Both pretty terrible today. I just have no interest in either of these guys. They're, just in bad shape. So we're just going to look at Will here because he has been pretty solid today. Bring him up to the top so we can see the headers. But Will Zalatoris lost a full stroke approach. Wow. All right. Well, maybe we're not betting this one. Did he get it? Hold on here now. Hold on here. Willie Z. I just think he's such a much better play. It's a viable bet. It's not my favorite one. Did he just hit one in the water or something while I was writing this? Because my sheet updates live. Where's Willie Z? Yeah, Zalatoris is struggling right now. So, but I still think he's a good bet against Straka and Lashley. They're both just terrible right now. So, for me, I think that's a good looking bet. Let me just pull one more here. See if I can find Straka. Lashley's been terrible. Straka was not good today either. But yeah, Will, that's surprising. I would expect him to really bounce back here. He's a much better golfer than that. So hey, maybe you should bet that Phil Mickelson plus 225 if you don't want to bet Will Zalatoris here. I'm gonna go on. Sometimes you just look at the group and say, you know what? He's a better player than the other two guys. So that's where I'm going to play. Oh, there's Straka. Yeah, Straka lost almost a full stroke and a half approach today, right? So while Will was pretty poor, he was not anywhere as near as poor as like a Sepp Straka. So yeah, there's that one. So again, probably my favorite bet is the Munoz over Kisner and Kadira. Follow that up with Norlander over Grillo and Schenk. And if you want to bet Zalatoris over Lashley and Straka, or if you're feeling frisky, you can bet Mickelson plus 225. Man, that's some decent value. Over Matsuyama, just typing this in here, and Fowler. Oh, there we go. You can do that. I would go up to like 0.3-ish. What am I returning? Yeah, I might just throw 0.3 on that anyways. So, all right, guys, that's what we got for today. Again, hopefully be back tomorrow with another one of these, talking through some of my head-to-head bets as we head into the weekend and maybe looking at a couple of live ads.